Okay, I think we're ready to go. Dawn, you gonna lead this?
Sure. I see Kate is here. She is our fabulous moderator this morning. Kate, are you good?
Yes, I am good.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I had to find my mute button.
That's okay. So, good morning, everyone, and just welcome to our fourth day. We've got just a little bit of housekeeping. If you can just say hi and where you're from and what role you serve, and then I will step back and let Kate do her fabulous thing.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kate Diorio. I am the Director of People Services here in the Red Line Area School District. I wear a ton of hats. I supervise school nurses. I supervise school counselors, our mental health program, transportation. I am the ESSA liaison, homeless liaison, and so I do an awful lot, but what I'm going to talk to you today is about my job as a homeless liaison here in the Red Line Area School District, and specifically McKinney-Vento law. So the McKinney-Vento law is a federal law that guides really the country on how we support our homeless and unaccompanied youth. The law was created in 1987. It was an act in 1987 and became a law, and it has really been supporting our youth since that time. And there's been many renditions of it till its present day. In order to become homeless or unaccompanied youth, I tell people when I have to explain it to them that there are really two components. One, the individual needs to lack fixed, adequate and stable housing. And then the second is an event has to happen. And on our McKinney-Vento form, we have parents, guardians, students identify what the event was and a before and after address. That really helps us with our state reporting, but we also need that information to serve our families. So we want to know things like, did you experience homelessness because of an eviction? Is it because there's domestic violence in your home? Is it because there was a fire? Did you just have to leave? And some people are very transparent with us and tell us exactly what happened in great detail, and other people are a little bit more evasive. And that's okay, because we need to provide people with their dignity when they are coming to us and explaining something that is so deep, unique, and personal to them. So we really we respect people's boundaries when it comes to that. One of the things that I work with people a lot is to inform them that, yes, even though a family may be doubled up, and that's a term that we use when someone is living with another person, typically there is no money exchange, it's just an agreement. There can be money exchange, but typically it's just an agreement of people living together. But when individuals are doubled up, people assume, because sometimes people land in really nice houses and they say, well, how can the Jones family be homeless? They're living with the Smiths in this really nice house. And I say, because it's not stable. At any time, the family could be asked to move out. And sometimes that's really difficult for people to wrap their heads around. So that lack of fixed, adequate, and stable housing means they could be living in a motel or a hotel. It means they could be living in a camper, a tent, doubled up, in a shelter, transitional housing, in a public space or abandoned building. My experience in the Red Line School District is that our families are living doubled up. We live, for those of you who may not be really familiar with Red Lion, our community is very rural. It takes about an hour to get from one end of our district to the other, and our families will not travel to York City. And there's a couple reasons. Number one, it's a scary place for some of our families. And number two, they don't have the gas money or the transportation to make that drive. So many, many, many of our families will double up. I would say of the 100 or so families that we have currently who are homeless, I would say 97 of them off the top of my head are doubled up. Very few of our families venture to live in hotels, which are typically located on Arsenal Road, Route 30, or move to shelters. So those two components are what identify a family as homeless or experiencing homelessness, lacking fixed, adequate, stable housing, and an event that precipitated that move to the housing that they are currently in, or the lack of housing that they're currently experiencing. The second piece to the McKinney-Vento law is the unaccompanied youth. We have students who have been abandoned by their parent or guardian, or students who have elected to leave for a number of reasons. This one can also become tricky because there's some judgment placed upon it. For example, we've had a student who she decided to leave the house after an argument with her father. According to the young lady, the argument was about curfew. And what I heard from a lot of educators or other adults in her life was, well, she's just being ridiculous. She needs to follow the rules. When I was her age, I had a curfew. Or we heard a statement like, if that were my daughter, this is what I would do. It is not my job to judge or to offer parenting advice or to offer the child advice. It is simply to find the resources that that young lady or young man needs in order to continue their education within their district of origin. Because that is the greatest benefit of the McKinney-Vento law is the stability in education that is provided for students. Some other things that are provided to students aside from the transportation among districts, between the district of origin and the district of residence, our students are provided with free and reduced or free lunches. So if a student hasn't already been qualified for free lunch, they now do qualify for that service. And that's very beneficial to our families. Students are also entitled to Title I services. Many of our students receive those services already, but it is a nice layer of support to help kids out with some gaps in education. McKinney-Vento will also support students who may need things to participate in their education. For example, if a student requires a uniform to attend their school, that's not the case in Red Lion, but if that were the case, the district has funds to pay for the uniform. They can also pay for, sneakers for gym class, or it can help students with other activities or with other resources so that they can participate in their education. What the McKinney-Vento Act will not pay for are things like yearbooks, prom dresses, things like that. Fortunately, in the Red Lion School District, we also have a resource fund. We call it the Social Worker Fund. So if we have a student, regardless of their housing, if the student wants to play the flute and the parents do not have the resources for that, we can pay for that rental fee or for the lessons for that student. Because it's not just about the educational stability, but it's about connecting kids into programs that keep them hooked into school. So that is my really, really brief synopsis on the McKinney-Vento Act. I'm looking through the chat really really quickly, I don't see any questions about McKinney-Vento and how it impacts schools, but I would be more than willing to answer any questions.
Kate, thank you so much for taking the time. We will put some of this information in the slide deck as kind of a Q&A, highlighting some information. And I just appreciate everybody's grace and all this. We are having just a little bit of technical difficulty behind the scenes, but we're being resilient and working it through. So we do have a question, is there a maximum distance that they can provide transportation to?
That's an excellent question, and one that when we work with other school districts, we always have to figure it out. So Red Line is very large. It is not uncommon for our students to be on a bus for an hour. So if we have, say, an 11th grader, a 10th grader, or definitely a senior who becomes homeless, and they are living in Hanover, I'm going to use a real example. The student was living in Felton, and now they're in Hanover. Would we provide transportation? 100% yes, because when we do the mileage, when we look at it, it does fall within a mileage, a reasonable amount of mileage. Time. If that child probably not going to be suitable to put a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old on a van or a bus for a week, for an hour. So we would probably not do that. However, there's always a however, or it depends.
Sure.
We have student right now who is super connected to his teacher. Like, that's his lifeline, is his teacher. It would be like taking a child from their mother. And we have made some really conciliatory, we've made a lot of decisions that may not look like it's in the best interest of a child to put a young guy on a bus for so long, but in the interest of this child and the trauma that's in his life and the connection he has with his teacher, that kind of overrides it. So to really answer your question, is there a limit? No, we can never ever say to a parent, the distance is too long, it's too much money. We are never allowed to say that. But we do have conversations about what's in the best interest of a child. And there's so many factors like age and other conditions that factor into that.
So there is another question about school districts having similar services to Red Line, but I'd like to piggyback off of what you've just shared. So, and you've kind of built this into what you have already shared, but who is in the driver's seat in terms of rights and responsibilities with regards to students and the McKinney-Vento Act? Is it the school district or is it the family?
So every school district, as part of the McKinney-Vento law, has to appoint a liaison. In Red Line Area School District, that is me. So we have families who are homeless. I'll provide a situation. We have a young man, I'll call him Stuart. Stuart is living, the family is in the shelter. Stuart has decided he doesn't want to live in a shelter. He is living as an unaccompanied youth with doubled up on a couch with some friends. Mm-hmm. Mom and dad are still very involved in Stuart's education. I think that's one thing we need to be very, very careful with. Families get split many, many times in homeless situations. That does not mean the family is dysfunctional. The family can be perfectly functional. They're just living in 2 separate or 3 separate locations because of rules that may be instituted, or they have a big family and another person cannot take them on. So in Stuart's situation, Mom and dad are fully participant in his education. They sign his notes, they call the school, they participate in meetings. They're wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people. I had another situation with a student I'll call Bob, and Bob's parents were completely not in the picture. And in those circumstances, I was the one who filled out his notes. I was the one who signed permission slips. because he had no one else to do that for them. One thing I learned, and this was something that really threw me for a loop, is Bob had a tremendous amount of dental issues. Literally, his teeth were rotting in the back of his head, and it was going to cause a lot more issues in his life unless he got it fixed. And he needed to have dental surgery. We have a fund with dentists in our area who will perform these types of surgeries at a significantly reduced cost. Bob was going to have to go under for this surgery. So Bob has no connection with his family, and I am depending on Bob to tell me, are you allergic to anesthesia? That is something that kept me up at night. I know my own biological children do not have reactions to anesthesia and that they are good to go. But now I have to rely on Bob to give me his medical history. I was allowed for Bob to go under for his dental surgery because it was non-elective. It was absolutely necessary for him to have the surgery because it was just affecting his headaches. It was causing a lot of pain. So I almost act, the liaison almost acts like a proxy parent in some situations, not all, because again, I want to really underscore, being homeless, experiencing homelessness does not mean children have poor parents.
And so to just get back to the question from the chat is, how many school districts in the county have similar services like the Red Lion School District?
I cannot speak for all school districts, but I know in dealing with my colleagues in other districts, if a child would need something, whether that be, I use the example of a flute lesson, or they wanted shoes or they needed the headgear for wrestling. They have some type of funding that will support that, whether it's something that they do like a social worker fund. So I'll tell you about that. We allow our teachers to wear jeans every Friday. They pay $1 to wear that. That money, the teachers can designate that money to come into, if they choose to come into the social worker fund. So we have a couple $1,000s sitting in a fund that replenishes every year so that we can do these types of things. It's our own money that we use to push back out towards kids. And I know other school districts have similar programs. I don't know if it is the type of resources that we have, if they're greater or if they're less, but I would say across the board, school districts are very, very benevolent to students. And it's not just about academics, it's about those other activities that really engage and hook kids into school. So they'll do whatever they can.
So if there is a family in another part of the county that is encountering housing instability, and they are unsure how to navigate the system, they may not be well versed in McKinney-Vento, and let's say I'm Aunt and I'm witnessing this going on, who would be my first best step to call if I want to connect this family with somebody in another school, and it could even be another school district, but we're going to stay here in York, I mean another county, but who's kind of that first layer of connection within a school?
Well, again, every school district has to have a liaison. So if you would call the school and say, or the district and say, good morning, may I please speak with your McKinney-Vento liaison? They will be able to connect you to that person. Typically in school districts, it's people who have positions like myself, Director of Pupil Services, or it is social workers who are designated as the McKinney-Vento liaison. So if you want to save yourself a couple of steps and they don't have a Director of Pupil Services or somebody of a similar title, I would look for their social workers, because that's typically where the job description as the liaison lies.
And we've put in the chat, there's an excellent directory that identifies that information, but also we are trying as a coalition and as a collaboration to help navigate the system as well. So between the York County Coalition on Homelessness, this group here, the Subcommittee for Students, we are trying to help connect those dots and understanding that it's all about trusting relationships and building that. So again, it's reaching out, and we may, as Kate said, I don't know who it is in, in another part of the county, but we'll help get you there one way or the other, in that role of advocacy.
And I want to thank Kelly for putting up that list. One thing that is really, really unique to Red Lion, and I give all the credit to Sonia Pizzi and Missy Gosnell,
Yes.
is they have done a phenomenal job of creating this unity amongst York County school districts. So for example, I know that if I needed to contact the homeless liaison in Southern York, I know I need to call Jill Platts. Her number is in my cell phone. I consider Jill not only my colleague, but my friend. I know that if I need help in Southeastern, I could contact Kara Wojcik. I also consider her a professional and also a friend. And I have these networks all over. And that is because Sonia and Missy have knitted us together, because these students are so transient. And that is the strength of our community, is I know exactly who I need to call. So even if a parent called me and said, hey, my kid's in Dallastown, or the situation is happening in Dallastown, within 5 minutes, I could give her the contact for that individual. So it really is a unique experience. I've been dealing with Franklin County yesterday, and about different issues, very, very frustrating. And it really makes me appreciate, especially during this time of Thanksgiving, how grateful I am to live in York County, where we are so knitted together. We think we're fractured in many things, but when it comes to supporting homeless students, I know who to call, and I'm willing to make those calls on people's behalf.
We have a comment from Nancy in the chat about what are school districts doing to ensure that students that are having to deal with the remote learning are taken care of when they're experiencing housing displacement. And Nancy, it is different for every school, and I think that's a great question. The sensitivity for that is absolutely there, and there is an upper level administrator who is tasked with keeping on top of that. Our school districts over the last 10 years have improved tremendously in terms of this awareness and the mandate to be out there and checking on people. But it takes communication, and it takes from our community saying that enough is enough with regards to the stigma that's attached to displacement. We're all just one event from being homeless, from experiencing homelessness. And we need to understand that there are people out there that it is their job not to fix the situation necessarily, but to connect us with the services and the agencies that can help us on this path. So it's a communication, it's relationship, it's trust building, but every single school district has somebody who oversees this. We need to get that word out more and more, and that's what this week is all about. Kate, thank you so much. Are you able to stick around? I know you're super, super busy.
No, I can stick around. There's a question here from Allison. Can I answer that real quick?
Yes.
Okay, so Allison says, what if students don't even know these services exist or are not willing to share? Okay, two parts to that. What if they don't know they exist? We are required, I was audited last year, in every office there should be, and had I known, I would have brought the poster. We have a poster, and it's in Spanish and English, and it has my business cards with it. We have to make it known in every single office who our homeless liaison is. So I have them in each of my school counselors' offices. They're in the nurse's office. They're in the bathrooms. I have them at the judge official, who's our MDJ. I have it in his office. Everywhere that there is a public space, Rudders, I mean, anywhere that these are there are public spaces where our students congregate, we let them know. However, to your second point, you say, what if they're not willing to share? That happens frequently because, unfortunately, parents assume that when they become homeless, people are going to take their children away, and so they hide it. And some of our parents are living in situations or conditions that are unfortunate because out of fear. So when those situations occur, it is really a delicate conversation, because people are, when they are experiencing homelessness and it is a result of things like domestic violence. In Red Lion Area School District, eviction and domestic violence run 1 and 2, very close. Sometimes domestic violence is 1 and eviction is 2. Both carry a weight of shame with them. And we have to have very, very, very delicate conversations with people. And I want to, again, underscore the amount of trust people are putting in us when they are just sometimes dumping their whole family history on us and some really shameful things that are happening. They perceive it as shameful. Honestly, there really isn't too much that I haven't heard, and it's maintaining that levelness and making sure that you are not adding to the trauma by saying things that may be insensitive or inappropriate. What we sometimes do if parents are still not willing to share is we guarantee them that no one is taking away their children, and number 2, their children can stay in the same school. And I have to give parents a lot of credit because, again, sometimes there's a misassociation that parents, homeless parents, are bad parents. And when you have parents who are living in some of the conditions that they are living in, and their primary reason for living in a situation is because they want their children to stay in the same school, there is no greater gift than a parent can give than their education and stability to their child. And that's what they are trying to preserve. And so sometimes we have parents who spend a lot of time lying and deceiving, but the purpose for that is because they believe what they are doing is the right thing. So once we have granted that assurance that the child will not be taken away, they can remain in the same school per the McKinney-Vento law, it just opens a whole new conversation.
I would not unmute. At any rate, thank you, Kate, because you've once again hit on another element, and we do have some resources here on our website about conversations. And we, you know, I'm just going to say it, as a middle class soccer mom, I was a consummate fixer. And when somebody came to me, I was going to fix that situation. And man, you know, that feels awesome to give somebody all of the answers. And so many times that can lead into a lot of insensitivity and a lot of just what we in the biz call prescriptive behavior, but basically kind of like busybody stuff as well. These conversations need to be in the realm of, we are empowering, we are working with the families and the students, and we are asking, what do they need? What do they want? It is not our job to tell people what they should be doing, and I'm telling you what you should be doing in that moment, but we need to be asking them what they need, and making sure that they understand that they are empowered and they are in the driver's seat in one of the most difficult times in their life. And that this moment does not define them. This moment is simply something that they are experiencing right now, and that the supports and the services are there to help, but it is their choice to take advantage of them, and it is our job to simply be there. Because so often, sometimes people may not seek a service today, but 2 weeks later, they might come back to us, and we should not be in that space of, I told you so, you should have come back. That's not what this is about at all, because that does not help break the cycle of what they're going through. So those conversations are super important, and I have to just give so many kudos. The staff across the county are very well trained in this, and to trust the process and reach out, and reach out. So again, those resources are on our website. We'll continue to post them. And whenever there's a question, please, please, please go back to the ECYA, Education for Children and Youth Experiencing Homelessness. Sonia and Missy are an incredible team that have been doing this for decades, and really can help point you in the right direction. Kate, thank you so much. I'm not seeing when lines are crossed, a child needs to be removed from a situation that is harmful. So that comes into highly trained staff. That was a question in the chat. When a child has experienced harm, our staff are very well trained. Staff across the county are trained in what's called mandated reporting training, and they absolutely do know the steps to follow with that. And that is a great question, and it's an important one.
So Dawn, I used a story about a young lady in our school district who used a story about a curfew, and that's why she left. She got in an argument. And so what I heard from colleagues was, well, she's just a spoiled brat. I mean, honestly, if I had a nickel for how many times I heard my father say, if you don't like my rules, then you can find someplace else to live. I mean, he practically gave me the invitation to leave. I knew in my family that meant you better get your act together. It really wasn't an option, but according to this young lady, that was the story she heard. And so people placed their middle class, well, I heard that a zillion times in my house. What I later discovered is she was not ready to tell us about her trauma. And she was actually escaping sexual abuse. And so that's why I'm always very careful. Like if a kid tells me it's because they got an argument with their parent, I have no idea what that argument is. I just know that they have left. It meets the definition of unaccompanied youth. A significant line was crossed. Even though it had happened some time ago, as a mandated reporter, I had to report that.
Thank you. Absolutely. Just a little bit of housekeeping as we move on, and please keep the questions coming. I would like to just give some shout outs to the amazing team behind today. We do have Salita Day, who's a social worker from Lincoln Charter. And Salita, please, I know that you're having some technical difficulties today, but please chime in when you're able. We absolutely want to hear from you. Kelly Bletchertass and Robin Shearer are going to be a team coming up. Kelly Bletchertass is the heartbeat behind the York County Coalition on Homelessness, and her partner in crime, Allie Smith, have absolutely helped us throughout this entire process in the months previous to this to be able to put this on. Jody Foster from CCBH is running our chat today, and Jody, help us out if there's a question that we're missing. Colleen Igo from our Systems of Care County Services, amazing team over there that again helps to knit us all together and connect the dots. And of course, you just heard from the fabulous Kate DiOrio, Red Lion Supervisor of Pupil Services. On the screen right now, you should be hopefully seeing just a short little slide on the team members that came together back in February to say that we're going to kind of break our own cycle of dysfunctionality in York and really work collaboratively on behalf of students and their families, because the alternative is just not acceptable and our families are worth it. We have some just housekeeping in terms of we appreciate your feedback. This is the first time we're doing a platform like this week. We absolutely want to hear from you. Today's session is on resources and how to connect. Please fill out the evaluation form on that. You have our website that you can do it off of the website or go straight to the Google form. So if you have to hop in and out, we totally get it, but please share with us how we're doing as we move forward. We've got our red shirt day tomorrow. Encourage you to wear that red shirt and hashtag it. I have no clue how to do that, but I'm sure there's somebody else in your circle of influence who does. At least post it on Facebook, or just email it out, or just hang a picture from your window, but share with people that you're aware and you're supportive. Our virtual sleep out that the Friends and Neighbors group is doing on behalf of Covenant Youth House, Covenant. I confused Valley Youth House and Covenant, sorry. Because of COVID, this is not something that we can do safely as a group, but you can show your support by doing it individually. And you're sleeping out, just however is not your normal, to bring awareness to the fact that our students and our families face this kind of disruption every day. Over 1,500 students and their families every year face this kind of disruption. There's more information on how you can best support that on their website, on their page. We have another amazing event that's coming up this week, another Lincoln Charter and York City community activator, Tanisha Wilkes, is incredible. She started this last year and the response was amazing. Union Lutheran Church is going to be the supportive hub for this on the 22nd. Homelessness and community, the awareness and community giveaway. So that information is out there. I'll review these at the end as well. So without further ado, I am going to hand this over to the amazing Kelly and Robin. Robin is not feeling well, but just like Robin always does, I'm gonna cry because Robin just puts herself out there day in and day out, and today is no different. But Kelly is going to be her voice today and just share with you some of the street outreach that her and her team have done. And so when people say disparaging things about York, I need you to get the message today that that is so far from the truth, because day in and day out, we have people that are just not just giving their hearts from an emotional standpoint, but giving their talents and their expertise from an efficiency standpoint to make things happen. And that's part of the amazing team that's going to be shared in the next few minutes.
Hey, thank you, Dawn. So I'm grinning ear to ear about I Will Be Your Voice, because those of you that know Missy and Sonia, every November they do a whole initiative around hashtag I Will Be Your Voice. And it's a really great way to share the stories of students that are homeless without putting people on the spot, without making them uncomfortable. And so others come in and read their stories. So I'm chuckling because I'm essentially doing the same thing for Robin right now because she's ill. So I will do my very best to cover some information about Friends and Neighbors and the work that they're doing for our homeless populations. And if I miss anything, perhaps Robin might jump in, because I know that's how she is. So we'll see what I miss, right? So Friends and Neighbors of Pennsylvania have taken on kind of an enormous objective throughout COVID. They have been providing street outreach in York City to our unsheltered populations. They do a host of other things as well, but from a Coalition on Homelessness perspective, they have taken on something that hadn't been handled collaboratively or comprehensively in York City in the past, and that was making sure that our unsheltered populations are connected to housing resources and making sure that there is a relationship there to make sure that they are offered indoor space whenever possible. And so we have a lot of outreach teams in York City that do a lot of great work. They have a little bit of variation on how they handle things, but this is the first time a team has really focused on housing for those folks. So we are very happy to have the Friends and Neighbors team, but I wanted to tell you just a little bit about what they do. They are working on coordination with all of our housing providers, whether you're talking about emergency shelter all the way through permanent housing. They're collaborating across a number of agencies, mental health offices, faith-based organizations, the police department in York City. They have been amazing for joining folks together that have been doing similar work, but trying to make sure that we're all doing it together. And so we're not duplicating effort. We are just putting focus on the things that we know we need to do for these folks, and to try to make sure that everyone who is outside is safe. It can make people uncomfortable that there are folks who are outside, and recognizing that, you know, maybe housing should be a right, but in our current climate, it is not. And so we are trying to make sure that those that are outside, those that have either declined indoor space or just aren't ready for it, or whatever the situation might be, are as safe as they can be. And you can do that. There are a host of ways that you can keep people safe outdoors. So they have been going into areas where our unsheltered homeless congregate, and making sure that they are forming a relationship. They're asking them about their needs, trying to provide referrals if the individual is looking for a referral for help in some area. They are trying to guide them to places that they could get warm, or they could get a meal, or they could get shelter. They are handing out, it's getting cold. It's very cold last night. They are collecting and handing out supplies that have been very thoroughly researched. So really, really quality supplies that can help someone who is outside make sure that they are safe and they are warm enough to be outside. So they have been doing an amazing amount of work with very little staff. I'm going to be really honest. They have a Robin and a handful of volunteers. And so they have been out 6, sometimes 7 days a week, talking to folks and trying to find them a safe place to be. We are well aware that the community is uncomfortable with unsheltered homeless being near their businesses and their organizations and all of those things. And we understand that. So finding a safe place for those individuals to be is just as big of a part of street outreach as making sure that they have connected to the resources they need and connecting them to items that might make it easier for them to move on from their space, like an ID. IDs are a big one. So all of that work is what Robin has been doing. They are collecting supplies to hand out for our unsheltered homeless. They have an excellent wish list. I'm going to toss the link to their website in the chat when I'm done talking. But they are also a huge component of Code Blue shelter that the community is trying to lift up for the York City area for the winter. We're looking at 2 different church locations and being able to provide overflow shelter space when the weather is bad to make sure that even those folks who are saying, I don't really want to go into a long-term shelter, can still get out of the elements. We're still going to provide some additional beds this winter to account for a lack of emergency shelter beds due to COVID distancing. Now, I will acknowledge that a lot of this work is happening in New York City, and the reality of that is simply because of the ability to expand. We certainly hope to expand all of these resources countywide, but the reality is with the current staffing and volunteer opportunities we had to start small. And so we started in New York City with this work, but we are hopeful that this will continue to grow and that we will be able to cover far more areas of the county in the coming years. So that's what we're focused on. Robin, did I miss anything? Can she talk?
Only talk a little bit. No, that was great. Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, so I'm gonna just give you the Friends and Neighbors has a full website, but I'm gonna link you just to their outreach page so you can read a little bit more about what they're doing and you can certainly explore from there. So any questions for me or for Robin? All right, thank you so much.
Okay, let me share screen again. And we hopefully, there we go. We've got Colleen Igo from the Systems of Care York County, and what I'm hoping that you will glean and be nurtured by in this next part of our conversation is the commitment of York County to truly knock down silos and create these incredibly important relationships. And Colleen is at the center of this work. So Colleen, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Dawn. Good morning, everyone. My name is Colleen Igo. I work for the York County Human Services, and we actually, thanks to a grant that we had received back in 2012, were able to put together our program, in which it's called System of Care. And actually defining it is really difficult because it's actually more of a philosophy in how we do business with our community. So if we go to the next slide. I always like to explain it like this. It's bringing all of the main folks together from juvenile probation, children, youth and family, the mental health, drug and alcohol, education, community members, families, and the faith-based group, bringing all those groups together around the table. And the purpose is to work together to have better outcomes. The target market, or the target group that we work with, are those who are youth and children who are at risk, as well as who have mental health challenges. And we like to define it as more than one mental health challenge. So we bring all these folks together to figure out how we can better serve our community. We've also expanded it to include not just those youth, but also the community at large. So for example, around our table now, I put it at the very bottom, we have an additional guest, Lisa Kennedy. Now Lisa, I'm sure many of you have heard her name in the community. She served on our governance council as a volunteer. Thanks to the grant, we were able to bring her on as a staff member who is our family peer support specialist. And she works with, across the board, with families in a number of capacities. Next slide. So just to give you an example, if you've seen things like trainings for mental health first aid, or recently we did a training on building resilient youth, all of this was made possible because of the System of Care grant. We've done a lot with trauma-informed care, not only for the community, but also within the school districts. For example, Kate's Red Line was one of our first pilot school districts that we were able to give funding to so they could train all of their staff on trauma-informed care. We have done collaborations with the faith-based community. We've done community cafes, and then also spearheaded the Mental Health Awareness Month, where we ask people to participate by turning their business or put up signs about raising awareness about mental health. Next slide. So I just wanted to invite all of you, I know you all are busy people anyway, but I wanted to make you aware, if you are interested in getting involved with the System of Care, we have a number of ways to do that. So we have a leadership team meeting, which is open to anyone, and which we meet quarterly. And we also have a variety of committees to get involved with as well. Next slide. So if we look at the big picture, we are connecting dots, we are making connections, and that allows us to collectively paint how we want our community to look. Next slide. And this very much is what I'm seeing, having been involved with this committee when Dawn had invited our group to come on board. Everyone is amazing in that we are all at the table for the same reason, and that's to make our community better. So if there's, you want to get more involved with what we're doing at the System of Care, please let me know. And we truly appreciate all the work that you've done for our children and our families in your county. So thank you.
Do we have any questions from the chat? I'm not seeing. Can you discuss the quarterly meetings again?
Yes, actually, we get together. It includes directors, it includes case managers, it includes just the general public, where we share information about what other organizations are doing. And it's kind of like exactly what you see with connecting the dots. I can't tell you the number of resources and information that came out of that group. To give you an example, when I first started years ago, we had a guidance counselor, Shannon Engel, come to one of our meetings. And out of that discussion and me getting to know her, I was then got involved with all of the other school districts and invited to come to their social work meetings and share about System of Care. So it's all of just the ways to connect with people. It is a great networking opportunity. Plus, it's a great way for other people to learn about what you're doing. Our next meeting, actually, what I'll do is put my email in the chat, and also the details of the next meeting. It will be done on Zoom, but it will be taking place on December the 2nd at 1 o'clock. So I'll type that in the chat, and you're more than welcome to join. to join us. And the biggest thing I do want to stress is we're always looking for youth and family voice. For those who were involved in any of the days this past week, and you'll be seeing today too, it's just having the voice of a family member, a voice of a youth, and kind of like what Kate was talking about, really hearing them will only help us do a better job of helping them in what their needs are. So if you know of a family member or a youth who has been impacted in some sort of capacity as it relates to being involved in our systems, our county systems, please, I encourage you to have them contact me and I can tell them a little bit more about what we're doing.
Someone had asked for your information to go back up again, and hopefully you're seeing that, and I stopped seeing the chat, so we're having a juggle here.
Yep.
I would love if the attendees could just in the chat put 1 or 2 words that reflect the message that you might be receiving this morning. We would just like to get a little bit of interaction and feedback from you. You know, this is like a resource fair that can be kind of dry, but I'm just curious what kind of messaging you're getting from the presenters who have already gone. And I'm also wondering, for those that are attending, you're a pretty connected group. Are you surprised by what you're hearing today in terms of what is out there in our county, or is this reinforcing what you already know? So those are some just concepts that I would like to get a little bit better handle on. Anything else from our from kind of our panel group today before I move on to the next section? We good? Okay. So the next section is actually reflective of the organization that I serve, is Contact Helpline 211. Many of you in York previously were connected with the first directory. It put out like the 3-inch thick directory of resources. And we actually, as the nonprofit group that took over those services, I think it was about 7 to 8 years ago, we even still have that number. And that's never going to go away, the 771-1000, but really we want you using 211. But my point is that the commitment to serve a community in any capacity as far as connecting resources is there from Contact Helpline. And so Contact Helpline has been in place. We actually have our 50th anniversary tonight. So if you are looking for something fun just to kind of plug into remotely, we'll be live streaming at 7 o'clock, our 50th anniversary celebration. Started in the 1970s as a way of helping the community just be heard. It was a time, for those of you that are a little older like myself, during the Vietnam War era, where people felt a little bit chaotic and wanted to connect and didn't know how. And so this warm line, listening line, was created way back then to just be a safe space to share whatever you needed to share. And so that's the inception, and that's the heartbeat of who we are, is to offer that non-judgmental safe space to share. And then we've, in the years following, took on the role of additionally connecting a community with resources and referrals. We do not offer direct services. Our job is to connect the community. And so we are an accredited organization. We actually just went through the most recent accreditation process, and we maxed out in terms of the training and expertise that our volunteers. We have very few paid staff. We have a lot of amazing volunteers that have been with us 35 years. We have one volunteer who actually moved to the Midwest, and 3 times a week she logs on for the 3 a.m. shift, because she so believes in what we do that even from that distance, she is going to serve the population. 211 services are regional. we serve the entire state, but we manage regional resources. But the listening line, literally we get calls from all over the world. So our resources are available 24/7. Even though we are actually one of the smaller 211 providers in the state, some of the bigger guys and gals actually roll their phones over to us because we do provide the 24/7 services. You may have to, that phone may have to ring maybe 10 times if you can only imagine the volume that we receive. That's not usual, but somebody, a human being, will always pick up the phone. Doesn't matter if it's Christmas Day or in the middle of July. So you have the free line of 211 calling for information and referral, and the helpline of 800-932-4616. Two services, one group of highly trained individuals and staff and volunteers. So as I said, our nonprofit covers this 10-county region in terms of the resources that we curate, cultivate, maintain. We have about, I think last count, it was like 1,400 agencies that we maintain their records, and something like 8,000 services within those records, because obviously agencies can offer multiple services. That's one of my jobs for York, Cumberland, and Adams County, to maintain agency records so that when you call in, you know that you're getting accurate services. But we tap into a statewide database. So if you have a relative in Allegheny County, one of my phone specialists is able to share with you what services are in other parts of the state. So with 211, you're getting the information and referral services. We like to think of ourselves as a gateway to the human services, that you know that when you call us, you're getting hopefully the full depth and breadth of what's available in your community. It's a nationally recognized number. It's free and accessible. We offer a language line. We offer texting. If you text your zip code to 898-211, we can work with you over the phone to get you the services that you're looking for. We also, and York County, I'm so proud of us, was pivotal in the creation of the statewide online presence. So previously there was an online presence. It was not very user-friendly. But now if you go to 211.org, you will see a guided search way to look up services. You can create a PDF to print it out. You can email it to yourself. And it's not a great kept secret, but we are working on, we're not there yet, but a chat function. Hopefully in the coming year, we will also be able to chat with you when you come online. There is a little, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little red tab here. Again, mindful of some of the challenges that our community members face. If, let's say, someone is experiencing a domestic violence situation and they come in online and they want to look for resources, if they click here, it pops to a safe screen so that someone else in their household would not know that they were trying to find services. So again, because of that community collaboration, we're just always seeking to provide the best services in the way that a community member can access it. And we do serve many masters. You know, we need to serve the agencies that are giving us their information. That's a valuable commodity, and we take that very seriously to make sure that their resources are updated with fidelity and professionalism. We serve the community member who comes to us and is in a situation that they may be in survival mode and they need critical services, and they need to know that they can rely on us. We also serve the community member who's looking for just health and wellness services, and or just you know, where is that next community event? So maybe not, it's not somebody who's in crisis, but certainly wants to be better connected to their community. And then we serve the professional staff member who is helping to bridge for a community member who's a case manager or a social worker, or you know, we get calls from wonderful staff, professional people who are simply trying to help. and they want to make sure that who is standing in front of them or who is on the phone is being connected in an efficient way. So again, you know, it's those absolute necessities: food, water, shelter, and clothing. It's meeting those Maslow level needs that someone might have so that they can survive and thrive. But as we are digging deeper into the community, we also, oh, I'm not out of line, but I'm jumping ahead of my spiel. We also want them to think of the depth and the breadth of the community. People do call 211 for a variety of reasons: for employment support, unemployment benefits, financial assistance, transportation, education programs. But while they're calling, they are seeking that compassionate, non-judgmental ear. There are times that people are asking us for advice, and we are listening, not to fix, but to reflect back and to clarify. It is often shocking to a first-time caller that it's a human being that's there to answer. And I cannot tell you how often when I'm on the fence, because part of my job as a resource manager is to be on the fence and connecting with the community and making sure what we're doing works. It is incredibly rewarding and maybe a little bit tragic and sad when I speak with a caller and he or she says, "You're the first person I've talked to in a week that took the time to listen, that offered some resources, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate the fact that if these aren't exactly what I need, that I can call you back and know that somebody else is going to be there to answer." We cannot discount how important and how critical the human-to-human connection is, and our callers absolutely recognize that and appreciate it. So one of the other benefits of us is we are highly trained, we are centralized, and in times of service, in times of disaster, we do become a central hub for being able to push out disaster services. We turn on those features very quickly, and we are very connected in the community with the disaster services in the community. And that can even be as far as like when there is a flu situation, not, you know, even with COVID, where is there testing? We will be a source of when vaccines are available. We will have that information of where people can get vaccines, what's the process for that. We've done it in the past with other flu situations, and that's how the community does use an integrated service that becomes that bridge and that gateway. I did jump ahead before because I really do want to stress that people see 211 oftentimes as that crisis touchstone, but we want to increase our value in the community to become also the place that, you know, where you can look for your dog park and your Mom and Me book club. We do have those services on because we want to send the message, that's an important message, that community wellness runs deep. And if we're only running in crisis mode, we're missing out on an opportunity to thrive. And what we present to the community needs to be well-rounded as well. Another critical element of what Contact Helpline offers is the helpline, is the 800 number that is emotional listening. It is not therapy. It is 10 minutes of emotional listening where we reflect, we identify feelings, and we might paraphrase. Callers do often want us to give advice. That's not our role. And if it is a crisis situation, we are trained on lethality assessments, and then we can make a transfer to crisis if that is needed. It happens rarely, but it does happen, and we are trained for that. But we hear from people that of all walks of life that just want to be heard, and want to be heard in a way that honors and values their voice. We do have frequent callers that call us twice a day, every day of the year. And then we have those callers that call for the first time and don't even know how to start the conversation, but just are at a point where the emotions have gotten them so tied up that it is difficult for them to process a solution. And that is one of our core principles, is the caller owns the problem and then they own the solution. And so it is one of our belief systems that is backed up by science, that emotional Triggers keep us in the back amygdala brain and keep us from processing. And when people can hear their own story and own the emotions that are attached to things, then they're very often able to release that survival response and start working in the front part of their brain to start the solution building. And so if they need to call us one time or they need to call us 100 times, that's our space, is to offer that to them. I stress, especially in this time of challenge and some chaos, that we are not just for the family or the person necessarily in crisis that you would typically think of. We are for your staff members. We are an anonymous way that you can share this number with staff if you're calling from a professional organization to say, we get it. We understand that you are under a lot of stress, and here is a place that you can call, and if you just need to just let it loose. Now, our phone specialists are trained that they don't have to take abuse directed at them, but we do get callers that can be very angry and have very, what we might say in a judgmental world, are ugly messaging, but it's not directed at the caller. That is that safe space that the caller can say anything that is not an inappropriate or manipulative call. And just know that somebody is listening to them. So this becomes a way of supporting professional organizations that might be maxed out, that your staff could call and be able to just vent or celebrate sometimes. We're in very isolated situations, that they would know that a trained person is there to listen. We, of course, with that emotional listening line, get those calls that you would think of. Loneliness is the top reason that people call. And we do get a lot of concerns. We want to share that. We get a lot of concerns, especially from young people, that their LGBTQIA concerns are not being heard in the community, and they don't know where to turn to. And we get a lot of calls, and it is a safe space for them as well. So it is the whole breadth and gamut of what our community goes through. If you're a professional agency, we do provide regional and county reports. We can, so if you're looking for data, if you're going after grants and you would like to understand what our community is experiencing, we do have these reports that we offer. Give me a call, and we can pull some data and see what you need, and see if we're getting what you need. We also do provide through that phone system, if you have some special projects. Now that's a whole different conversation to have with our executive director, but like when our area was looking to understand food insecurity better, we entered into a partnership with the food bank, the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank, to be asking specific questions of every caller with regards to food insecurity, and then offering services. We did the same thing with housing discrimination with the HRC up in Harrisburg, to ask specific questions with regards to housing discrimination, and then we point people into the right resource if needed. Here's my contact information. Kelly Golick, the executive director, is an incredible human being. If you have any questions with regards to special projects, she's your person to get in touch with. I can help you make that connection if you want. You know what? I needed to update this, and I apologize. I am working remotely as of a couple weeks ago. Made that choice. So, and I'll put in the chat box my phone number if you do need to get a hold of me. But always email is available.
Dawn, you do have a couple questions in the chat box.
Okay, lay 'em on me.
So the first question is 211 a national way to find community supports like 911?
So if you need 911, then you dial 911. But there are other ways, other services that are needed. And so yes, if you were in Ohio and you need services, you call 211 in Ohio, and they will plug you into whatever emergency services you might need there. Did that answer the question?
I'll let you know if she responds.
Okay.
Next question is, what is involved in becoming a volunteer to help person call, wait, what is involved in becoming a volunteer to help person the phone calls?
Absolutely. We have an extensive training program. It's over 40 hours of training. It will require being in Harrisburg for part of it because of the tight supervision that we do with what we call our apprenticeships. However, a lot of it we've shifted to remote work because of the pandemic, but nothing replaces that face-to-face, and we do it safely. So as of right now, it would mean that you would have to go up to Harrisburg for some face-to-face training. And Kelly Golick, again, would be, if you want to contact me, I will get you in touch with that person. I do put out the cavalry call. If you are bilingual or trilingual, we absolutely would love to beef up, especially to our Spanish-speaking community members. Language line is great, but when you're in the middle of trying to share something and being very vulnerable, if you're able to speak another language, we absolutely would love to seek out additional volunteers for that.
Okay, you have two more questions. What do you call the DV hide screen function from others in the home?
What do I call that? There is actually a technical term for that, and I am not sure. I would normally Google that. Does anybody else know? There's a emergency pop-out term for that thing, and I'm blanking out on it. Is that what you're asking, what that little pop-out screen is called?
I would assume so, yes.
Yeah. I'm clueless right now, sorry. But I will find out and I can put it in the chat screen.
Okay, thank you. And then your last question is, somebody had a concern, does the call drop after 10 minutes?
No, we never just hang up. And we have some persistent callers that don't, but we are trained to kind of gently ease that call. And again, in all honesty, because we're human beings, when we get some of those first-time callers that people are really, really emotional and they've gone through a lot, sometimes those first calls do go 15 minutes. I have taken calls that have gone 20, but I'm also cognizant that we have other people that are in queue, and I try to gently let that caller know that that has kind of been a first-time situation because I wanted to honor the space that they were giving us. But yes, we understand that when we're dealing with an emotionally charged situation, that 10 minutes is a tough window. But here's the other element, is that we are not therapeutic. And there are many times that after speaking with us that a caller will come to a realization that they need to seek out additional services. And that's a beautiful moment if and when they do believe they need additional services. If they are calling from Pennsylvania and they kind of have that light bulb moment and they say things like, I really wish I knew if there was a counselor out there, I will have the gentle interaction with them and I will say, if you're calling from Pennsylvania, sir, it's not, or sir, ma'am, it's not my job to fix or to counsel you. However, since you are calling from Pennsylvania, I do have access to those resources. Would you like me to look up something in your area? Sometimes they say yes. Sometimes they're like, no, I'm not ready yet. Sometimes when they're calling from another part of the state, I share with them they can access 211 in their area, and I can even give them a direct dial number for 211 services in their area. So sometimes those moments happen and we're able to share additional, but I say kind of jokingly, you should never hear from one of our phone specialists, man, that husband of yours stinks. You two need to go to marriage counseling. Like, or boy, that teenager, he or she is running you through the roof. You need, like nobody should be giving advice. And because of quality control, we hope that, if those moments ever slide, that we're reeling it back in and we're making sure that we're just offering that non-judgmental space.
Thanks, Dawn. It looks like that's all the questions I captured today for you.
Fantastic. I will stop sharing. We are pushing right at 10:15, a little past 10:15. And, oh, shoot, I shouldn't have stopped sharing. let me do this because we do. I would like to give our panelists and the attendees an opportunity to kind of have any last minute reflections, and then I'll just kind of go through our wrap up and share what's happening tomorrow. Any of my panelists have any just kind of reflections on what we've shared, any insights? Don't leave me hanging. You're gonna leave me hanging. All right.
No. Sorry, it took me a minute.
Okay, Kate, you go.
I just wanted to thank everybody on this panel who created this. This is way outside of what my brain can think to do. I know there's a lot of work behind the scenes to make this happen with creating, just creating. And so thanks to everyone who put this together. I have been in my role as a homeless liaison for 6 years, and I still have people in my community who say we don't have homeless kids, or they're shocked that we have homeless students, because our homeless students, our homeless families do an excellent job of not looking homeless. And I think, you know, there's a phrase about, I've seen it on social media many a times, about never knowing what somebody's going through. And that's so true of homelessness, that we have families living in nice homes, and we have kids who have the best sneakers and the newest cell phones, and, you know, whatever that people attach as status. And yet those same individuals can be homeless. And so in my personal growth, becoming the liaison has really helped me gain empathy and perspective, and reserve a lot of judgment, because, as people have said before, we are all one situation away from becoming homeless. And we need to be humbled by that.
I am seeing in the chat, there was a question about landlord and rental assistance programs. We did have a session on Tuesday about housing, and there are resources that are on the Facebook page for the York County Coalition on Homelessness that have some videos that discuss that. And if you have some direct additional detailed questions, please send them our way and we can connect you. Great question.
I'll jump in there too, Dawn.
Yep.
So Dawn is completely correct. There are a couple of different rental assistance programs in the community, those that assist folks who are behind on rent, but also those that are assisting individuals who've become what we call literally homeless. You know, those that are in shelters or on the street, locate a new unit. Right now, a lot of the assistance is focused on COVID relief, and that's just the reality of where we're at right now as a community. But I always caution folks that this far into COVID, I would say that most people have had a COVID impact on their housing. And so even if you don't feel like, oh, well, that's not for me, I still encourage you to reach out to those programs and have a conversation about eligibility and see if those fit for you. Now, the other thing I will say about rental assistance programs is they are changing rapidly all the time right now. And so we are encouraging folks to work through 211 that Dawn talked about in order to make sure that you're getting referrals to the most appropriate rental assistance programs for your need and also for your location. There are programs that operate in different parts of the county that might be closer to you than others. And the folks at 211 will ask you just a brief couple of questions about your situation to be able to better direct you to the most appropriate resource. So please, for those types of things, please go through 211 to find out what the most convenient and appropriate resource is for your need.
And, you know, Kelly is bringing up a great point, and I know it can be frustrating, and it just, there isn't a fix for it. Pennsylvania is one of those situations that it is not consistent across the state, and it can be very frustrating. It can be to the point of heartbreaking that a program that is in one county is not in another. The way that it works in one county is not the way that it works in another. But what I will tell you is that in York, they have worked very hard to be as effective and compassionate as they can. And so it is challenging when people call us and they're like, but that's not the way it works in Blair County, and all we can do is say, we understand, this is the way it's working here, and this is what we will try to do to connect you here. Anything else? I had a question about the data and reports. I am going to add a tab to our website, and you should be able to access reports off of Contact Helpline's website. And if you go to the PA211.org, there are reports, there's marketing information, but I am going to add a tab to this website that we've created called By the Numbers, under the resource one, and we'll start putting some of the reports as well as some of the more drier kind of statistics. Those help tell a story as well. Even though we're about relationships, we do sometimes need those numbers, and I will create an additional page under the resource tab for that information. So stay tuned, that should be up by the end of the week.
I'm going to jump in again. I see a question from Tiffany about landlords. The reality is landlords change all the time. Landlords change, landlords that will work with people change. And so no, the short answer is no, there is not an individual list of landlords that will work with folks that are struggling with their credit or have evictions on their record. But you can talk to other community agencies. The Bell Socialization Next Door program is a great one. They have landlords that they have worked with, and if you're working with their staff for case management or for rental assistance, they will often be able to make a referral to a landlord that they know is understanding and able to work with someone who might have had previous housing challenges. New Hope Ministries does similar work. I would venture to say that Mason-Dixon Community Services does as well. Kate, probably Community Reach, has some connections as well in the Red Lion area. So there's no one magical list of landlords for this purpose, but there are community resources out there that work with landlords that might be able to connect you. That being said, I will say that the coalition just a few weeks ago hired a housing navigator. Her name is Jamie Stevens. Some of you have been around a little while in York County might remember her because she used to run one of the housing programs at Bell Socialization. But now she is working in a housing navigation role. And so her job is to connect with our landlords in our community, find out what we could offer them so that more of those households with a little bit more difficult credit score or a little bit more difficult past housing record can still find a place to stay that they can afford and is safe and is everything that they would need for their family. So she is working on that, but we don't have a list to necessarily put on our event website.
In Red Lion, our social workers will drive around our community, and when they see a rental sign, they will take a picture of it, and they will contact the landlord and ask questions about, rent and some procedures. Working with private landlords can be very difficult from a school perspective because some of our landlords require clean credit checks, clean criminal history, first and last month's rent, a security deposit. So we're talking about $2,000 to $3,000 even before the family gets into the place. And that is why we experience a lot of doubling up in our community. So they're very much localized. We also have a ministerium in York County where we have a group of faith-based organizations that will support families to collect or to gather some of the resources needed for last month's rent, security deposit. But again, these are all very local, regionalized or localized resources. Community Reach, located on First Avenue in Red Lion, serves Eastern, Dallas Town, and Red Lion area school districts. So they are tremendous in their help with those three communities.
Okay, I think we're coming to the end. Again, just want to reiterate the amazing program that is happening at Union Lutheran. Tanisha Wilkes. Wear your red shirt tomorrow. I will be your voice. The virtual sleep out benefiting Covenant House. Our next meeting for the coalition, York County Coalition on Homelessness, it's normally the 4th Thursday of the month. Next month it will be the 17th. And then the subcommittee for students meets the first Tuesday of the month at 8:30. Let us know if you would like to participate. We'll be debriefing from this event and creating next steps. I have to tell you, the interns that are part of this process are chomping at the bit to make a change. And I think that we've tapped into kind of that secret sauce of collaboration that, you know, it's not going to happen overnight. We have to be persistent, and for students and their families, we can do this together, but it is going to take collaboration. So we need your feedback. We've put the links for the evaluation. If those can go back in the chat, again, I would appreciate it. You've got our website. Tomorrow is our student-led celebration and panel discussion. It's going to a live feed from, we're live too, but from the Parliament Arts Center. Cal Weary has been a wonderful collaborator on this to help amplify our student voice. That's going to be tomorrow at 9. And of course, if you miss a session, they're being posted on the Facebook page from the York County Coalition on Homelessness. We are posting those video links as well within our website. Anything else, our wonderful panelists, before we say goodbye and see you hopefully tomorrow? Are we good? Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Jody, for helping monitor the chat. And thank you, everybody that attended today. Have a great day. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but you know, we'll make it up tomorrow. Take care.